We are going to discuss a very interesting story today, written by Jack London and titled The Law of Life. It is the story that gives us a glimpse of the lives of the Eskimos in North America. And Jack London was an adventurer who traveled to the Alaska, and he had lived there for some time, and so he had first experience of the life of these tribes. He had also participated in the Klondike Gold Rush, when adventurers set forth in search of gold in the Klondike River Valley. Here we have the central character. The central character here is an old man called Koskoosh, and he is now seated all alone in the midst of milling activity around him. There is a lot of noise, and it is because the camp is being the tribe is leaving from that place. They are moving over elsewhere. They are breaking camp, and so we hear noises of the portable lodges being dismantled. We hear the sounds of people talking to each other, the grunting of men who are working hard, and the barking of huskies or the dogs that draw their sledges, the crying of babies, the sounds of women, all that can be heard. And the old man is listening very intently, and because those may be the last noises that he's going to hear, last human noises, that is, because the tribe is going to move forward without him. Now he is quite old now, and he is blind too. Elsewhere in the story it is mentioned that he had a problem with his eyesight right from the time he was young. Now he is almost totally blind. All that remains is a hazy vision, and he is weak, not healthy enough to travel. And it was the practice in the tribe to abandon the old and the weak when camp was being broken and when they started on a new journey. Now, to us who are taught to that it is wrong to abandon old people, and that it is our duty to take care of our parents and grandparents when they grow old and weak. So to us this might sound to be a very cruel practice, that is abandoning old parents. But then what we should remember is that the life of Eskimos is far removed from our lives. For them each day must be a struggle against hunger. Each day is a fight against wild animals, against the bitter cold. So it is only practical that they make things easier as much as they can. So taking along with them an old person who cannot fend for himself would definitely be the wrong choice, and so their life itself justifies the decision. And the old man too has no complaints, because he has lived a full life, and the same thing had happened with his father too. They had to abandon him, and so he was not too emotional or worried about what was going to happen to him. So now the people are leaving one by one. He can hear the sledges moving away, and his son, who is now the leader, comes towards him. He places a very tender hand upon the old man's head, and he tells him that it's almost time to leave, that he cannot tarry or wait any longer. And the old man says, you do not have to bother about me, because he says, I am just a last year's leaf, he says, because any moment I am going to fall down, in the sense I'll be dead very soon. So he consoles his son and tells him, you don't have to worry about me, I'll take care of myself, you just get along with your life and with your journey. And so once the son leaves, there is this silence that engulfs him from all sides. He sits all alone, and there is a heap of dry sticks or faggots placed around him so that he can keep the fire burning. And now he realizes that death is slowly closing in, and the distance between death and himself is decreasing minute by minute, and he can almost count the distance, the steps that death takes towards him, because it amounts to the number of sticks that he has with him. When the last stick dies out, that means that he too will soon die out. It might be the cold, or it might be some wild animal that is going to attack him if the fire is not there. But whatever, death is very close by. Then sitting there, he remembers many incidents, vivid memories from his past. He thinks of his friend Zingha, who was a mighty warrior, but who was a great hunter too. But then Zingha had a tragic death because he fell into an air hole. But the thing is, the idea that we have to, I guess, grasp from this incident is that no matter how brave you are, no matter what a warrior you might be, you are nothing in the presence of death. Because here Zingha, the mighty warrior, finally died of cold. There was nothing to protect him. Not all his bravery could keep away death. So that might be the message that this incident gives us. And now old K sits there and remembers all this, and he thinks, he just meditates on the ways of nature. And here we see Jack London's opinion coming in here, because the author, he believed in what we call Darwinism. And as we know, Darwin had said that he was the one who put forward this theory of man, the evolution of man, and how man evolved from a single-celled organism to be what he is today. And again, Darwinism says that it is only the fittest who would survive, the survival of the fittest. And that is another idea that comes across, that we come across in this particular story. When old K dwells on all the events of life and on the general truths that he has learned from his experiences in life, he realizes that nature is never too bothered about the individual. It is the race or the species that nature counts. No matter how exemplary an individual might be, however talented he might be, nature doesn't take any out of the way effort to perpetuate that single person. What matters to nature is the survival of the species. And so the task of every living human, every living being, not human beings alone, any living organism, the only task according to that nature ascribes to us is to perpetuate our species, to give birth to to offspring, and make sure that the species moves forward. Other than that, the individual holds no particular value. So that is the lesson, that is the law of life that becomes the title of this particular story. And he thinks of the case of women, for instance. He says, when a woman is young, she is very beautiful, people like looking at her, and then there is light in her eyes and there is fire in her soul, and sooner or later there is some young man who's captivated by the light and the fire, and he makes her his own. And then the children are born, and then starts the journey downhill. And then the woman slowly, once the task of perpetuating the species is done with, she starts going downhill. She grows older, her skin gets wrinkled, she loses her beauty, and finally, like he is, she too will be abandoned. This is the case of all living beings, whether it is a plant, whether it is an animal. Now he talks about a rabbit, an old rabbit. A rabbit which in the prime of its youth can outrun even the fastest husky or the wolf. When it's old, it can hardly take a step forward. And so that is how life is. This is the lesson that he has learned from life. And now he remembers another incident where he and Zingha happened to witness a fight of an old moose against a pack of ferocious wolves. Now the moose is a strong animal, and had it been young, it could have easily escaped from the pack of wolves. But here it was an old moose, and he put up a heroic fight against the pack. But finally the wolf had to succumb to death. So all this he recalls, and towards the end of the story we see that he feels the presence of some other creature close to him, and he realizes that it is the cold muscle. He can feel something near his neck, and it is the cold muscle of a wolf, and a shiver runs down his spine because he knows that the wolves are closing in. Now the wolves have sensed that a prey is ready here. They know that the man is weak and that he cannot put up a fight, and so they are slowly closing in. So in his last kind of an urge to survive, he takes one of those burning faggots and he twirls it around him so that he can keep away these animals. But after some time he gives up, because he wonders, now what is the point in me trying to fight against these wolves, because I have lived a full life, and ultimately the purpose, the task assigned to me has been accomplished. I have done what I can, and it is time for me now to put an end to this struggle. And so with this realization, with his wholehearted acceptance of the law of nature, old K puts down the burning faggot, and he puts down his head, and he awaits death in whatever form it may choose to come. But then he suddenly realizes that there is no point in clinging to life any further. He has lived a full life. He has successfully accomplished the task that life had assigned him, that nature had assigned him. He had given birth to strong and brave children. And so then he decides that there is simply no point in trying to fight against death. And he puts down the burning faggot, and he bends his head as if accepting defeat, and as if he were ready to accept death in whatever form it may choose to come. Maybe it would be the cold that is going to get to him first, or maybe it is the pack of wolves that are going to attack him and lead him to his death. So whatever be, now old K is ready to accept death. And what we see at the end of the story is the old man's decision to gracefully accept the law of life.